I'm looking for the relevant clause in here where it says that cell phone companies are absolutely free to change this 17-page document anytime they choose. But don't you dare do it to them. When Vodacom hiked contract prices, its customers took to social media to vent their frustration. Now, MTN has followed suit. This is Tonight. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight, I'm joined by Farai Mafina, who's the head of equities and a portfolio manager at JM Boucher, who is licking his lips at the increased profitability of cell phone companies. And then, of course, Duncan McLeod. Duncan McLeod is the founder and editor of the technology news website Tech Central to discuss what's behind the recent hikes and which mobile operator presents the best investment case. But before we talk about the investment case, so you watch social media like a hawk, you write technology stories, you break lots of the big stories. Have you ever read one of these things? It's called a cell phone contract. It's full of words, Duncan McLeod, and you've probably had one of the first people in the country with a cell phone.
I was, but I don't read those documents, I'm afraid. It's a bit like when you install new software. Do you accept the license conditions associated with iTunes or whatever piece of software you're installing? People just don't read that stuff.
Did you read your credit card agreement when you were given a credit card? No, you didn't. No. Did you read that wad of paper when you bought a house? No. And even if you did bother to read this, and let's assume for a moment that you understood the legalese in here, and you said, oh, I don't like clause 47.3, which says I'm not allowed to change the terms of the contract, but the cell phone provider is, you could back away at that point, couldn't you?
Well, I suppose you could go to a competitor, but I suspect the competitor's terms and conditions are the same.
Exactly. And then you'd be without a cell phone.
Exactly.
So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But they haven't, I mean, do these companies care when they have PR foul-ups like this one, where mid-contract they're changing the pricing of data? It's minuscule, but there's a point of principle here.
I think they do from a PR perspective. I think that they don't want their these issues in the headlines. They don't want, Vodacom doesn't want Vodacom hikes tariffs as a front page headline.
Well, now it's Vodacom and MTN hikes tariffs.
And Cellphone for that
and
matter.
Cellphone as well, okay.
And Telkom. They've all hiked rates in the last few months. So, I think it's bad PR for them, but, if they're all doing it, what is the consumer really going to do about it?
It's called collusion, it's called competition. It's called the Competition Commission. Is there a case to be answered here where it's coincidental that all of these guys do roughly the same sort of thing at roughly the same sort of time?
It is quite interesting that they've, particularly, we've seen the movement by 3 of the big operators just in the last 2 weeks. Whether there was any collusion between these companies, I think they're all very conscious of the fact that they're not allowed to talk about rates together. In fact,
so it's massively coincidental that 3 companies thinking independently, 3 independent boards, management teams who never talk to each other have done the same thing within a 2-week period.
Well, I'll let you speculate on that, Bruce.
Okay, assuming it is coincidental, Farai, it then suggests that all of these cell phone operators are under extreme amount of profit pressure.
That's correct. I also think it's coincidental. I think the economics of the industry require that they increase the rates. I think over the last 2 or so years, we've seen significant pressure on the pricing across the different mobile operators. So I think they overshot on the bottom a bit. That's the first point. And then secondly, I think they are also struggling on the cost line and they need to recoup that somewhere. So I think raising the top line is actually one of the things that they can do to maintain those kind of
Just before we came on air this evening, I was talking to Ernest Kaplan from Kaplan Equity Analysts, and he was saying, please just remember one thing, be fair to these guys, because for the last 10 years, prices have been coming down, and there's been this is actually the first increase we've seen in 10 years. So it's been almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. You can't keep going down forever, right?
That's correct. And I think also with MTR, there were
mobile termination rates.
Exactly,
yeah,
that's correct. They actually overshot on the bottom, so they're actually now trying to sort of establish a new base, if you want to call it that, which is actually economical for all the operators.
I blame Duncan McLeod and his ilk, because you've been telling us for years we're paying too much for cell phone services, paying too much for data. Now, either we're paying too much for the stuff, or we're paying too little. The cell phone companies tell us we're paying too little. You still maintain we pay too much?
I think we probably still pay too much in data. I think voice tariffs have come down quite dramatically over the last few years. Because of those cuts in mobile termination rates, it's actually allowed the market to become more competitive, and it's allowed the smaller operators, Cell C in particular, to challenge the bigger guys. And I think the fact that companies like Cell C and Telkom, I think through its mobile division to a lesser extent, have been able to use these lower MTRs to cut the retail prices, has fostered competition in that voice market. And we've seen a dramatic dramatic reduction, particularly in prepaid voice tariffs over the last little while. And I think it's very interesting to note that the price increases that we're seeing now from the operators are to do mainly with contract subscriptions.
Why are they persecuting holders of contracts?
I suspect because it's easier to do that, because there's been a fierce price war that we've seen over the last couple of years in prepaid voice.
And prepaid is far more migratory. I don't care what service provider I'm on. I simply port my number to service provider B or C if they've got a better deal this week.
And that market, it doesn't care. They move between networks to get the best deal. We see that in the churn rates, which sit 40-50% a year. They'll go to the best deal. I think in the contract market, people are more stuck within these contracts. They've got to pay off the cell phone they got as part of the contract, for example. They're locked in for 24 months. And I think there's probably more loyalty towards the brand than there is in the prepaid market.
But it's not loyalty to the brand. People just couldn't be fagged to change. I'm speaking for myself, of course. But here you are. You're in a contract. The contract says, thou shalt not break this contract. But we've got a clause in here that says we're allowed to. It's a gesture of bad faith or desperation.
It's written in there. You know, I think to give some credit to the operators here. I do think they're under a lot of pressure. We've seen the rand fall dramatically over the last year. A lot of their investment is costed in US dollars. They're spending a lot of money in these networks. MTN's announced they're going to spend 10 billion rand this year. Vodacom is spending a similar amount. The fall in the rand is certainly hurting them. The load shedding situation we're seeing at the moment means they're having to invest a lot of money in generators and diesel to keep these networks up and running. If load shedding happens in your area, Bruce, you've probably noticed that the mobile network actually stays up. That's because they're investing in diesel infrastructure to keep these base stations running.
You've gone soft, Duncan McLeod. You've gone soft. But no, those points are well made and are fairly made, absolutely. Okay, so Farai, here we've got a situation where all of the mobile operators are looking to restore decent levels of profitability. What's your pick at the moment between, we've only got two, Vodacom and MTN?
I think it has to be MTN. If you look at the valuation, Vodacom is trading at a 16.1 times, which is about 22% call it discount to the market. And MTN is trading at about 14.6, which is about 33% discount to the market.
Who's paying a bigger dividend? Because Vodacom for a long time was, and then MTN stopped buying stuff and started paying out juicy dividends itself.
Yes, Vodacom is paying better dividends. They're probably paying out everything that they are earning at the moment after capex and all the investment costs. But I think the one other thing that we have to look at is relative to their own histories. The companies are not looking particularly cheap because it's just the rating of the market is just run away at more than 20 times PE. So from a pure investment valuation perspective, I think MTN is a more attractive play. If you also look at their portfolio of assets, they are a bit somehow shielded from what's happening in SA to an extent. Their biggest market is Nigeria, and they also have operations. In total, they've got 22 countries where they can grow, and it's in areas which haven't gone ex-growth or saturated like South Africa.
We haven't seen deals for a long time, and then Cell C about 2 months ago, Duncan hired, I think it was Goldman Sachs, to advise them. Oh look, we are for sale. And then a week or two ago, oh by the way, our main shareholders are giving us 4 billion rand, or was it $4 billion? Eight, there we go, lots of billions, to invest. And you went, hold on a second, you're either up for sale or you're not. Now your shareholders are investing more, so that deal's off the table, no Cell C up for sale?
I don't know, it could be both. I think if the right offer comes along, if Ojet Telecom, the parent of Cell C, gets the right offer, I'm sure they'll go for it.
Do we need to see a Telkom Cell C merger? What do we need to see here, Farai?
I think so. There has to be consolidation. In any market, if I can put it that way, if you're not the biggest or the second biggest, you are not likely to make money. It's a game of scale. So I don't see how Cell C will actually become profitable at the size that they've got, or Telkom Mobile being profitable as a standalone entity. So for us, I think some consolidation will probably make sense to give them that scale that's
How
required.
does that consolidation pay out, Duncan?
I don't think it's going to be local. I don't think Telkom is going to buy Cell C.
Don't they need it?
I don't. I think that Telkom is working more with MTN. They're trying to do this sort of arrangement where MTN manages their network and that sort of thing. I think the relationship is happening there. I think Cell C, if there's going to be some sort of transaction, it's going to come from overseas.
But that doesn't give Cell C the scale it needs then, or does it bring fresh capital in order to grow the business?
If you get a big company like Orange, for example, or Bharti Airtel, or one of these giant global operators coming in, I think that have the resources to come in and invest in this network.
Orange is here in some form, isn't it?
Very small. They've got a small operation on the ground. They're sort of playing here and there. They've got an online store. They're playing in the Wi-Fi space in Cape Town, but they're not big at all. They were talking about at one stage coming in as a mobile virtual network operator like Virgin Mobile. They scratched those plans because they said the policy and regulatory environment wasn't right to do that. But they're still keeping an eye on this market. So there's a possibility at some point that they might make a play for Cell C.
They bullied anybody with the name Orange in their business title or with an orange logo to change that, and that was all for nothing. Oh, so come on. You see, I told you these guys were bullies. Farai, then how does this then pan out? What scenarios are you working with right now?
The industry itself is in a very difficult space, and I think there's in telecoms, I think there are only 4 levers that they can play with. So it's your pricing, it's the quality of your network, it's your distribution, and then also the customer care that you provide. At the moment, all those dynamics are not looking in the operators' favors. We've seen the pricing now, obviously, because the economics didn't allow them to keep the prices as low as they were. If you look at the network quality, Vodacom is definitely the leading player there and gearing towards data. And
Duncan's nodding for the record. Yes. How do we judge network quality? Just fewer dropped calls, clarity of line?
It's fewer dropped calls. So, for example, if you fight too much on price, your network will probably collapse on itself. So if your dropped call rate, if that one is higher, then the quality of your network is not as good. So we're seeing them on the distribution side. Obviously, it's a bit of a mature market. We think Vodacom can pretty much get you a SIM-PEG wherever you are. So going forward, I think it's probably going to be a fight over data. They will still make money on voice. We're probably seeing in our estimates over the next 5 years, that's when data can account for about half of the revenues that the operators.
Final question: are you on a contract or prepaid?
Contract.
On a contract.
It's a hybrid.
Are you on a contract or prepaid?
It's a difficult question to answer, but I'm on a very basic contract, which I was on a very high-paying contract. I've now moved to a basic contract where I'm not paying as much per month, but I considered my options very carefully before doing that.
Because a lot of people are going to prepaid. I'm still on a contract. I'm on a stupid old contract. Yeah. It's time to relook at these things.
It makes sense to move to prepaid. It does, indeed.
Okay, there we go. That is the word from the experts this evening. Farai Mafina is the head of equities and a portfolio manager at JM Busha. And Duncan McLeod is the founder and editor of the technology news website techcentral.co.za. Thank you for watching. There'll be more tonight, tomorrow. Till then, good night and goodbye.